Yeah. And then the next weekend, I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring some American culture to them. Right. So I was like, and at the time, I cook a lot more now. I love cooking now. But then I didn't use salt or pepper ever. I ate eggs was the main, food in my diet. Right. Like I was not complex. So I was like, what's American? So I made homemade French fries.
Homemade French fries.
Chopped
Okay.
up potatoes. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I can do that. I can fry some potato pieces, and bring those over. So I brought those, and I ordered a Domino's pizza because they have, right, of course they have Domino's there. Some people don't know that, but and so I ordered a Domino's pizza, and I was like, I'm gonna bring these over to be like bringing some American to the the karaoke party.
Yeah.
And they ate the fries, but no one touched the pizza. There was one sweet old lady that used her chopsticks to grab a slice of pizza and took a little bite out of it and then put it in her bowl, and that was the only person that ate any pizza. So the Domino's was a big failure. No one was interested in that, but yeah.
But the homemade fries.
The fries, hey, those worked. Those worked.
Well, we're live now. Welcome everyone to the very first episode of Behind the PFP. I'm your host Renren, and today we have a very special guest. He's a fellow original bean, the host of a well-known community Twitter Spaces and Bean Builders. But beyond that, he's well-traveled, an avid runner, and a stoic man who's clearly read a lot of stoic literature. Today we have the Ebe, or what we like to call him, Ebe. Ebe, welcome, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ren. I appreciate you having me on, and I think the show itself is really cool. I think we'll see what it grows into. I look forward to seeing what it grows into, but I think I would love the opportunity to know a bit more about those people that I see tweet all the time, or I see interact and get to know more about them. And so I'm excited for this show. I think it can add a lot to the community, and I'm honored that you would have me on to chat.
Absolutely. You were definitely one of the first people I thought about when I thought about this project, and I definitely wanted to have you on. A lot of it is also because I'm very comfortable in talking to you and hearing your voice, because I've heard it so much in these Twitter spaces, and I really envy the way you present yourself in those spaces, because you're able to clearly state how you feel, and you're not afraid of talking about going deep into questions and asking hard questions. So I really like the way you do those Twitter spaces, so it was an easy choice to have you on here.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, to anyone maybe that has heard me talk before, it's just it's a skill that I've built over a long time, and not like I'm the best at it, but it's I think the cool thing about talking, and also I should say the ability to talk is and to talk confidently, I think it comes more naturally to some, because it's like kind of like a cocktail mixture of different competencies, as well as maybe I'll just call them comfortabilities. And there's also like some negative things that go into being a good speaker as well. And just one example being like, sometimes I feel like I can lack, this isn't the best word for it, but lack a sort of empathy, or not be aware of the impact of the words that I'm saying. Like I might not be aware that what I'm saying might be offensive to someone. It's like, I don't think about a lot of that. Well, I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to hurt anyone. It's like I'm not overthinking that. I'm not trying to calculate things that might upset someone. And I tend to say, I certainly can say too much in some scenarios, because I'm just like, hey, if I'm comfortable with someone telling me this, then they should be comfortable with me telling them this, right? And I think, right, like that's part of what makes it that I can say things so honestly sometimes, because I'm just like maybe not thinking about how uncomfortable I might make someone else feel, right? So that's just another way to look at it, right? I am a strong speaker, but there's part of that comes from what I would maybe define as not as admirable of a trait,
Yeah, no, I totally understand. And I think that's just you being honest. And I think a lot of people would would actually accept that. And I guess it just depends on the person receiving that, if they can receive that well, and what's their tolerance on that sort of stuff, right? So it is definitely a skill to have, to be able to skirt around that and just make everyone comfortable. And you know what? I just know that you have a very good way of talking about certain topics, and you're very knowledgeable. So again, I'm very envious of how you run those tourist spaces. So I love hearing you speak.
Never confuse knowledgeable with bullshitting. I am a good bullshitter, right? And that has been what has gotten me through so many different whatever you call it. I mean, competitions, presentations, interviews. I'm a good bullshitter. And that does not mean that I'm knowledgeable, but it means that I can convey the idea that I am knowledgeable. And certainly I know more than some other people on some topics. I don't want to shit on myself too much, but I also want to note that another huge part of who I am, which is just funny, is you give me a compliment and here I am breaking it down into this higher level conversation about what it is, why I am the way I am and what that means. And it's that is, and if you listen to any of my Bean Builders episodes, right, that's who I am. I've always been that with my friends. My friends, they're always my friends are very jokey and they're always just popping off and being goofballs. And I'm always the serious one, right? I'm always trying to have serious thoughts and conversations and all that, which is, I guess, that's just who I am. So anyway.
I love that. No, I love that. And I respect that. You know what? I do want to dive into that a little bit, because you did say competitions there. So I want to go into that too. But before that, you know what? Tell us a little bit about yourself. I don't want that to sound too interviewing, but just explain who you are really, besides your digital identity as being the Ebe.
Well, I have relatively, let's think of some of the things that are definitive for me. I am from Iowa. That's huge. I come from relatively humble beginnings. Iowa, for those of you who don't know where Iowa is, it's right in the center of the U.S. If you drew an X, it'd be right in the middle. You would also be surprised how often people will confuse Iowa, Idaho, and Ohio.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Traveling the world, I was so surprised when people would mix those up, but they do. And then they'll think Iowa is the potato state, but that's Idaho is the potato state. Anyway, Iowa, fun fact, there's more pigs in Iowa than there are humans. So just to give you an idea of what it is, our largest city is 200,000 people. I grew up outside of a smaller city. My father's a farmer. I grew up horsing around on a farm. We had chickens. We had a pet chicken whose name was Rex. He was so big. He was a big cock, if you will, a male chicken.
Rex the cock.
He was this massive chicken, so big that actually, by the way, this Rex came from, this was back in the day when classes you would raise a chicken, right, in class.
What?
And so it's 100% we did that. And so you raise chickens in class, and then one of the students gets to take it home. And so I believe it was my older brother who got to take this chicken home. He raised it in, it's you go through the gestation period of the chicken egg, and then it hatches and the whole class, and I did something similar, but I didn't bring my chicken home when I reached that grade. I'm talking about my older brother here. Anyway, it ended up being such a big chicken that we gave it to our neighbor, and it ended up being their rooster, the one that was kind of the champion of the chicken coop, if you will. But anyway, so just kind of giving you some color there. That's a big part of who I am.
Rex the cock is a big part.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a huge part. And we built up a doghouse and everything. And that's another thing about growing up in Iowa. You build a lot of shit, right? Part of it because you have materials, but also part of it because you're trying to save money. It's not like, I grew up in a mansion or anything like that. I didn't grow up poor, but, you definitely try to cut corners where you can. And another example of that is when we had this old ass basketball hoop, very old, and it was just falling apart. And so what I did with my dad one day is there was some scrap metal in the shed, and we took that scrap metal, we cut both ends to the length we needed it to be. It was like an iron post, and then we cemented that into the ground, and then we took the old basketball hoop, laid it against a PVC pipe, like I don't know what you would call that material, but like a thick plastic, like PVC pipe, right? But it's a thick plastic that's laid out. It was like a square piece, and we cut out we traced the old basketball board. We drilled on the old hoop to this PVC basketball hoop, and we hung it up, right? So that's what I grew up with, you know. And yeah, I went to college in Iowa, a university most people wouldn't have heard of. After that, I traveled a shit ton. I was living abroad digitally, what you call digital nomading, if you will, remote work before it was cool, and that's sort of me. If I was gonna like do it, I have a degree in business. I'd always considered a career in sales management. Excuse me. Sales management, something like that, and that's, I guess, who I am.
So that's okay. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, so we got Rex the Cock back in the day, and also you guys always fix things around the farm, obviously. So yeah, you had to be hands on, and you guys probably got your hands dirty. Raising farm animals as well then. So yeah, definitely humble beginnings to definitely where you are now, where really you're a bean farmer is what you are.
That's
you're
what you could call
bean
me.
Farmer. Yeah.
That's what you could call me. I will say my dad, he could have made us work a lot more when we were younger. We lived 100 yards from a pig farm. We had a pig farm back then. We don't anymore on the farm. It's a little bit not cost effective to do at a smaller scale. We didn't have to. He could have made us wake up and feed the pigs. He could have done that, but he never did. I was around the smell, and I was around. There were certain things that we did, you know, details I won't go into that most people probably wouldn't want to hear that I was a part of. But we had it relatively easy, I would say.
That was life, though. That was life.
Yeah.
So I guess moving along with that, you're a well-traveled man. I kind of wanted to dive into that. So I know you lived in Vietnam for, I think, about a year and a half. And
good memory.
Yeah, and so I'm sure you've seen a lot of things. And I'm just wondering, first of all, like, why did you choose to live in Vietnam, and what were like the best and worst parts of living there?
So living in Vietnam, that all came down to when I graduated college. I had a friend that was like, hey, I'm going to go to Vietnam and I'm going to teach English, and I'm going to try to start an e-commerce business. And I'm going to do that because it's kind of like an adventure while getting to build my business, instead of building a business in your parents' basement as you're trying to, like, you know, bootstrap some e-commerce business, right? So it was like having your cake and eating it too. And I had accepted a job, actually. I was going to go into just a typical career. And he told me that, and I was like, God, that sounds so fun. I was like, can I do it with you? And so I dropped my offer, and I went to Vietnam, and we got our teaching certificate, and we started doing that. The idea was the average pay for an English teacher was really good compared to the cost of living. So you could work part-time, 20 hours a week, and live a good and fun life in Vietnam. That was the idea. And I ended up teaching online almost from the start. I was teaching a lot of Chinese kids one-on-one, or like 1-on-3. I did a lot of online teaching, some in class, but very little. And we started our online business. We focus on the Amazon Marketplace. That's a whole thing. But that's why we chose Vietnam. And we chose Vietnam because my friend saw some YouTube videos about how you could go there and teach English and work part-time. And he was like, that sounds sick. So that's what we did. And I didn't know what to expect. I mean, one of the things about me, I can be relatively carefree. You know, I just want to do what sounds right or sounds fun. And I'm not too I can be not too worried about a lot of the finer details. So when he said he was going to Vietnam, like I didn't really care much about, like I didn't even Google, to be honest. And this is going to sound, for someone who, like, before then I had studied abroad in Europe, and I had, this was in college. I went to Europe and I traveled all over Europe while I was studying there. And that was all my experience, was the Western world. And then when I was going to Vietnam, I didn't know what to expect, right? At all. Oh, I'd actually been to Shanghai in college as well. But that was a relatively short trip. So I had been to Asia, but not Vietnam, right? And as American, you know, you hear Vietnam and really, what do you think about? Like, you think about the Vietnam War. That's all we really know. And I didn't know anything about what the country looked like. I didn't know about how developed it was. It was extremely naive of me to, and I think for many Americans, you know, and I don't know that many people would admit this in the way that I am, because it is embarrassing, honestly. But I didn't know what to expect. And like when the plane starts lowering down and I'm seeing like skyscrapers in Ho Chi Minh City, I'm like, holy shit. Like I didn't know like that skyscrapers were going to be there, you know?
Oh, wow.
And just extremely, extremely naive. But what I'll end on, and you can ask whatever you want. I know there's another question I'm not quite getting to, but I got to Vietnam and it just opened my eyes in so many ways. And it was really my first home away from home. I spent 1.5 years there. The people are wonderful. The culture is wonderful. I can't speak highly enough about that place and the people there. And I have more stories than I can count, more stories than we have time for. But yeah.
Wow. Definitely spontaneous. I mean, just to have a job offer and then just say, hey, that sounds fun, teaching English in Vietnam and exploring the world because you watched a YouTube video of it. I'm down. Let's go. Yeah. That is spontaneous. I'd say so. And I
guess I had the fortune of very little student debt. I had like $1,000 of student debt because I had applied for a lot of scholarships, really like every year of college. You know, it's not that I had my parents footing the bill in that sense. You know, it's like I got lucky because of effort that I put in, right? Which is, there's some luck involved there. Not everyone can graduate college without student debt, but there was effort that went into that. And then I could be carefree the way I was. If I had $30K of student debt, I wouldn't have done that. That being said, I had another friend that joined us, and he had $30K of student debt. I can't believe to this day that he did that, but he did.
Wow. So two different kind of like living situations. Did he have as much fun as you though?
Oh yeah, we all had way too much fun.
No, that's good then. That's good. Despite the living conditions for debt for both of you, I mean, you guys still had fun going there, and I'm sure you guys probably learned a lot, like the culture shock, right? Of yeah, you're in the plane and then you're like, whoa, there's a lot of skyscrapers here. And then leaving the plane and then traveling the city, what was that like? It must have been a huge culture shock.
I mean, honestly, like if I'm going to be completely honest about that experience, I didn't know what to expect. And immediately it was very clear that being a white person was, because I'm not Asian, being a white person was very, like, you stuck out and you were almost treated like a celebrity. And that was really weird. There was a lot of people that were excited to see you, that would just smile at you, that would give you this attention. And as humans, we love attention. And so immediately I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is so fun. And, you know, the more time you spent in that, and that energy, that vibe contributes to a lot of, this is like a dark side of let's say Caucasians traveling to Asia. They get there and they feel that energy. And it's like, all of a sudden, Asia becomes this place where, and I shouldn't say all of Asia, but there's certain countries where this is probably more prevalent, right? Mm-hmm. And Vietnam being one of them, it can quickly turn into feeling like a playground, sort of. Because if you're a celebrity, right? Like, I think sometimes people wonder what it's like to be a celebrity and how that feels. And I can't help but think I got a small taste of that sometimes in Vietnam, especially in rural Vietnam, because I wasn't just in the cities. you are treated a bit like a celebrity. And when that starts happening, you start treating it like it's a game, and that can be weird. And I say that the easiest way to explain that is like a lot of people will go to Vietnam and they'll rent a bike and they'll drive all over the city. And I think that's fine as long as you're careful. For those of you who don't know, there's like 8 million people in Ho Chi Minh City and there's like 9 million bikes. I mean, it's a city of bikes.
Ooh.
It's insane. It's crazy. The traffic moves like a school of fish. It's surprisingly efficient. It's unbelievable. And as soon as you it clicks how it works, it's really quite impressive. But it can be very intimidating for starters. But the whole reason I'm saying this is a lot of foreigners will get there, they'll hop on a bike and then drive on it like it's a playground, But it's like it's dangerous, right? Like everyone's on a bike, like you're putting other people's lives at risk as well as your own, but it can feel like a playground, And I say all of these things coming from someone who went through that and felt that and was that stereotypical tourist that I'm talking about right now, right? Because how couldn't I be, right? I didn't have that experience. I didn't have that knowledge. And looking back, it is really embarrassing. And I think that's one of the interesting things about traveling around. And when people say culture shock, to me, and this goes back to one of the first things I said when we started talking, which was I cannot think so much about how I am offending others, right? I can certainly be that. The more time I spent on this earth, the better I have been at that. But, I guess what I'm saying is, I didn't know what I was doing and I learned. And so from a perspective of culture shock, I don't tend to feel culture shock, but certainly I can put myself in positions where I can look back and be like, wow, what an idiot, what an absolute dick, right? Like I can look at myself and think about me in the past tense that way, which I think is okay. It means that you're growing, right? It means that you realize that you just that you're growing, right?
That's a really interesting perspective for me because obviously I'm not white. When I went to Tokyo, I was just another person, even though I was from Canada. And when I went to the Philippines, I'm just another dude there. So it's cool to hear how it was like for you, because I know when Caucasians go to the Philippines, they're like treated like kings. Like I see my mom watching these Filipino shows, and they love having white guests come there. When my cousin's husband was there, he felt like everyone loved him and wanted to talk to him. I've seen it and heard of it, so you're not alone. And I mean, thank you for being honest. We all go through those sorts of events and experiences where we kind of look back and think, I was like that? And as long as you can, grow from it, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As long as you can, the first step is obviously to just realize that, okay, I need to do some growing there, and then you follow through with it. So you know what? That's a really interesting perspective, because I've never felt that before. Because not very many people become, a celebrity or have that feeling of being a celebrity. So to even get a taste of that, we see people go viral, right? They go viral from like a 2-second clip, whatever, and they feel all this like fame and power, and sometimes they do crazy weird stuff after, but it's a lot to take in. So I respect you for taking a look back at that, but I mean, it sounds like you had a lot of fun in Vietnam, though.
Oh my God. I mean, the people, like, so much love, I look back at it so fondly, and I have so many really fond memories of, and I'll just say 2 really quick stories, and I won't tell all the elements, but we were living, and also the most fun you'll have in traveling and living in different cities around the world is trying to go just a little bit outside of where most of the tourists or foreigners live. Because a little bit outside of that is where you really like can meet interesting people and build genuine relationships. And we were living in this house in an alleyway outside of District 2, which is where a lot of the action goes on in Ho Chi Minh City. And our neighbors, every Saturday they had a huge karaoke party. It was just like, and by huge, it was like them and their like neighbors that they've been having karaoke parties with for years. There's probably like 10 people in a room. They'd all sit in the living room, and they had a little phone. And by the way, living rooms in Vietnam, it's like so many living rooms just open up to the street. It's like there's a bike parking space,
yeah.
and then there's a living room just outside of that. And if you're walking through an alley, especially, everyone's gonna have their main doors open because it's hot. The where the bikes are parked, it's typically just a gate, so you can see right into people's living rooms, right?
Yeah.
So they're in this living room and they're all sitting down on the floor, food's all over the floor in bowls and foods, right? Bowls and plates.
Right.
And in the middle, they have an iPhone with some lyrics on like a selfie stick stand, and a stereo and a mic they would pass around. And they would always like wave us over to invite us to go in and sing with them, but we just like never could do it. And then never had the balls to do it.
Takes a lot, yeah.
And then one time I was teaching English online. It was at nighttime. And I heard, because Saturdays were big days for that, because you're tutoring Chinese kids.
Right.
Who also go to school.
Exactly.
Right? It's like extracurricular for them. And then I heard Kanye start blaring on the karaoke machine. And I was like, holy shit. one of my friends, one of my roommates is over there. They did it. They went over there.
Oh.
So I was like rushing to get done, right? Because they're not going to be singing Kanye, right? I knew that. I've been listening to them for months. So as soon as I finished that class, I rushed down and went over and we sang with them. And we had just such a wonderful time. We couldn't share words, we just like, they wanted us to sing all the English songs, and they were just shoving food in our mouths. We ended up coming back multiple weekends after that, not able to communicate, just to share in that like fun environment and moment and sing songs together. It just like, and there's more to it than that, but like, there's just so many genuine interactions I had with so many genuine Vietnamese people.
That's amazing.
That I have so much love for the country, and so, and I part of the reason I want to tell that story is like, hey, I was an idiot, but like not just an idiot,
Yeah, no. And you know what? You shared a common language in music. You guys shared that common language. You just sang and just had fun. I think that's really important because, as humans, yeah, we don't have the same language, but there are things that we can do together that goes beyond language, right? And you guys start to connect in certain different ways, and that's, oh my God, I can't even imagine. Honestly, I don't even know if I would have, the guts to go and just do that, right? Like, that's tough. I mean, even now, I don't want to go karaokeing, like, with my friends. I've never done that. So to just do that with people you don't really have like the same language with, and I can't even imagine. It must have been so much fun, and they were feeding you food. Like that's nice. I love that.
Yeah. And then the next weekend I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring some American culture to them, right? So I was like, and at the time I cook a lot more now. I love cooking now. But then I didn't use salt or pepper ever. I ate eggs was the main, food in my diet, right? Like I was not complex. So I was like, what's American? So I made homemade French fries with, chopped up potatoes.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can do that. I can fry some potato pieces, and bring those over. So I brought those, and I ordered a Domino's pizza because they have, right? Of course they have Domino's there. I mean, some people don't know that, but and so I ordered a Domino's pizza, and I was like, I'm gonna bring these over to be like bringing some American to the the karaoke party.
Yeah.
And they ate the fries, but no one touched the pizza. There was one sweet old lady that used her chopsticks to grab a slice of pizza and took a little bite out of it, and then put it in her bowl. And that was the only person that ate any pizza. So the Domino's was a big failure. No one was interested in that, but yeah.
But the homemade fries.
The fries, hey, those worked.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. So you said you had one more story too. I want to hear that.
The other story was we were living in a really small touristy town, but it's really beautiful. It's a little town called Hoi An. This is like famous for basically little shops and markets, and it's a very photogenic little town. And there's a lot of travelers that come through there. Mm-hmm. We were staying in this house, and this sweet Vietnamese lady who did speak English, she owned a massage parlor in town, and she was renting this place to us, and she was like, hey, we built a good relationship with her. We stayed there for like a month and a half or 2 months, and we built a good relationship with her. And she's like, hey, I want to come over and cook for you guys sometime. And we said, yeah, that would be awesome. Like get to eat some authentic food. And we were like, we insisted that she bring her whole family. And so it was her husband and her 2 daughters, and her 2 daughters were just the cutest little people. Aww. And we were just doing what you do with little girls, and they were kind of nervous to like talk to us,
Of course, yeah.
And we had a phenomenal meal. Her husband taught us how to crush beer cans really efficiently. That was fun. And we had such a wonderful time, even though we couldn't communicate with the husband or really the daughters, just the wife. We had a wonderful dinner, and we ended up doing it 2 more times. And just learned so much about this family, and I have these group pictures of us, and it's like and I have other crazy moments, like just traveling, you just meet such nice people. There was another example. We met this family, this mother and 2 daughters, at a night market. They just sat with us. We talked to them, and we were having fun. They lived in Penang, Malaysia. And they were like, oh yeah, you should come visit us sometime. We're like, be careful what you say, because we'll do it. And eventually we messaged them. We're like, hey, can we come over? And we did. And they hosted us. And they me and one other friend, we stayed with them at their house. We hung out with them for like 3 hours at a night market, right? But they took us into their home. We spent time with their family. They took us around to all the wonderful food spots in Penang. And, so much of that is just like, and I have way more stories. I'm really going on too much about this, but I have so many stories of just sitting next to people and just having a conversation with them, and really building like a really fun and genuine connection, even if it's only for a temporary portion of your life.
Absolutely. No, and you know what? That's okay, because I think like talking about these experiences, it really opens up a lot of people's eyes, especially people who haven't gone to Vietnam or anywhere in Asia, and you realize that there are a lot of nice people in these places. And I mean, I can't imagine trying to do something like that here. It's not the same. It really isn't. And so, you know what? I would love to go to Vietnam and do something like that, because that's very spontaneous and very adventurous. You know what? That kind of reminds me. So while you were there, you talked about an e-commerce business, right?
Okay, so what I was doing was we wanted to sell products on Amazon, private label products. We wanted to create our own brand, manufacture a product somewhere in the world. Likely China. That's where most people want to manufacture products because of the margins you can get, and sell those products on the Amazon marketplace, because Amazon will handle fulfillment for you. So it makes the process really easy, let's say. It takes out a lot of some of the struggles. Nowadays, there's lots of third-party fulfillment services that can ease your pain, but back then there wasn't as many. There wasn't really an option. So, and of course, Amazon has just so much of the commerce. A fun fact for people that I think people would find interesting is when people go to Amazon, the conversion rate's very high because the purchase intent on Amazon is very high. So when someone goes to Amazon, 1 in 10 customers is gonna go there and buy something. Maybe 2 in 10. That's 10 to 20% conversion rate is what we say in the business world. Now, if you have your own website and you're trying to drive traffic to your website, a conversion rate on your website is like a good conversion rate is going to be like 1 or 3 people in 100 will buy one of your products, so in other words, a 1 to 3% conversion rate, which is good.
That's a huge difference.
It's massive. And different businesses will experience different conversion rates. And it depends on what cycle of the business you're in. But Amazon, it just can be really easy to start. And so that's why we wanted to do that. Quickly, we realized we knew nothing about Amazon and we needed to learn. I mean, we all graduated college. We had no real world experience. So we all got on Upwork, the freelancing platform.
Upwork, yes.
Yeah, back then, so this was in 2017, it was a lot less known. And it was really a period where you could grow on the platform a ton because there was a lot of people coming to the platform, and we had a good number of views early on. And so essentially we built a service where we were servicing Amazon sellers. So essentially a digital marketing agency that was specific to the Amazon marketplace.
Oh, wow.
And we did that because we were like, hey, we can learn how to do this while getting paid for it. So we would say, yeah, we can optimize your listing. We would know nothing about it. And we would run to YouTube, watch, 4 YouTube videos for 4 hours, and then try and optimize this listing. And we, right, let's say an expert would optimize the listing in 2 hours. We would say, yep, we'll do it in 2 hours, right? And it might take us 8 hours, right? But that's how we learned, by overworking and not getting paid that much.
By overworking, not getting paid that much. But you learned a lot from it, though.
Oh, we learned a ton. Yeah. And we launched our own brand eventually, and our own brand did really well for a couple of years. It was me and 3 other guys, and we revenued like between $5 and $6 million over a 2-year period, and that was really good. But we made some big mistakes, a lot of first-timer lessons, and we were the best seller in our niche, and we lost that, and so that kind of fucked us over, and the brand is worthless today. So, but there was a couple of years of really good revenue in there. Yeah,
exactly, and it must have felt good too, though, especially when you were out traveling and doing those sorts of things. I'm sure you were able to use some of that money as well. No?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, less than I would have wanted, because we're saving up. We were putting so much back into new orders. But yeah, I mean, it was like the lifestyle that some people dream about, not one that I envy or wish that I was in right now, but right, like the business, we had days, it was like profiting like between $300 and $500 a day, which is crazy.
It is, yeah.
But that it's not as easy to do that anymore, by the way. The Amazon marketplace is way more competitive. It's a different landscape now. I'm not telling you to go try and sell on Amazon. I'm even like wary to do it myself. So
wow. So you would definitely, so you wouldn't go back to it if you could?
Not Amazon. I don't own an e-commerce brand right now, but I would consider, the right niche, something I was interested in trying to do, I would consider doing my own e-commerce brand, because I have a lot of experience in all forms of digital marketing now, which is important if you want to do any e-commerce brand, is digital marketing. But Amazon's like easy mode, right? Because you don't need to do digital marketing. All you need is to list your product on Amazon and then get sales. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's more or less how it works.
Absolutely. And reviews and all that, it takes a lot to build it up, and like you said, now, yeah, the landscape is definitely a lot different from back then, from when you were doing it probably in 2017, I guess.
Certainly, yeah.
So with Azuki and Web3, do you think you see a chance there to kind of build out an e-commerce product?
I don't know. I did think about it, and I'll tell a fun fact here, because I didn't end up doing it. I considered it. I was doing research on the Amazon marketplace to look at niches. This was months ago. To look at niches that are underserved, have a high demand, but not very good product offerings. And I found that kawaii water bottles was like a really good niche. And I was like, shit, I could just launch like Beans water bottles. I don't know if the niche is still good today, so don't quote me on that. But at the time it was, and I was like, I could sell on Amazon and try and use Beans IP for water bottles. Like, that would be interesting, right? But I was like, nah, like didn't want to spend the capital on like concepting these new water bottle designs and go, because that can get expensive, And so I ended up not doing anything with it. But in general, like, sure, I mean, I've tossed it around in my head, but I don't have anything that's like been, let's say, supremely inspiring or anything like that. I think probably if I I don't know. It's been interesting to consider, but I haven't decided to do anything.
I mean, that does sound interesting, though. I mean, if you could put Beans IP onto a water bottle or a niche thing over in an Amazon marketplace, it gets more eyes on that IP. It's kind of like a constant reminder to people that this is a thing. And then eventually, if Azuki, for me, when Azuki becomes this big brand then people would be like, well, I have that water bottle, you know, and then they
Sure,
start to dive more
sure.
into it. I mean, it's something
Well,
interesting.
to me, it would have, and I will say, anyone can run that test, right? You can create a beans related IP product and then try and go after search phrases and search terms on the internet that are kawaii backpack, kawaii water bottle. I think that you could design products with the intention of serving the kawaii market, even though they don't know what beans are. And so to me, selling beans water bottles was or would be sort of a test, because right, most of the products that are ranking for kawaii water bottle are those classic like kawaii bears or kawaii bunnies, like those, like, and I think we all know what those look like, right? Those are the kinds of products that people are choosing. So if you came out with a kawaii beans water bottle, you don't know that people would think that your beans IP is kawaii enough for them, right? And their image of what is kawaii, right? Because you're trying to get yourself in the shoes of the customer. But yeah, so to me, listing that would have been kind of a test. Like, do people think this is kawaii?
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of that's going to depend on, because you're not just going to slap your beans NFT image on a water bottle and call it kawaii. It's not really going to work. You're going to have to do things like I forget what it's called. Is it Ikagi Tea Shop or Tea? Is that that brand?
Ikigai?
Ikigai?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the brand is. Anyway, that they do such an awesome job pumping out really like cute content constantly. And so if you were trying to serve the kawaii market, you would need to produce organic content, right? That would let's say interest people, because I don't think the NFT itself does as much or as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Yeah, wait, first of all, is it kawaii or kawaii?
It's kawaii, probably. I don't know. Here's the thing, right? Like, I like anime. I watch it subbed, not dubbed, but I'm not.
Okay, yeah.
And I like anime culture. I like Azuki in that sense, but I am, I'm from Iowa, like I come from about uncultured beginnings as you can get, so no, my Japanese is shit, and don't ever trust anything I say, from that is Japanese. However, my German and Spanish is at least decent. So I'm not, straight up like all I can say is English, but I certainly, my Japanese is absolute trash.
I don't blame you at all, and honestly, I might be wrong anyways, because I'm not Japanese either, and I get it. I love Japanese culture and animes and everything, so I wouldn't blame you if you know what, I could be wrong. But honestly, one of the things I remember the most was, I think it was probably one of your first spaces.
I know where you're going with this. I already know.
Okay, look, I remember being on the OB chat, and everyone was kind of listening to it, and then you said Ikuzo, and everyone tore you apart, and it was so funny. It was so funny,
bro. Now anytime I'm watching an anime and they say Ikuzo, like anytime,
yeah,
it's just like, it's like, when you talk about, it's that phenomenon when you talk about something, you see it, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like that. Like, now whenever that is said on an anime, it's like just right in my face. It just slaps me right in the face. So yeah, no, I know.
Just a good reminder.
Yeah.
That was definitely something that I remembered, and I don't think I'll forget. And it's iconic. It's iconic to me. And so yeah, I mean, we've talked about how much you've traveled and sort of your profession, and I kind of wanted to also talk about what I noticed is that you're definitely an avid runner. Do you still run to this day? Like, do you run marathons still?
Yeah. I do it. I do it more often than the average person, but not as. I mean, I can be relatively inconsistent. I always forget the number. I'd have to ask my girlfriend to confirm it, but I think I've run 6 or 7 marathons. My girlfriend is way more, like, she's an absolute beast. She's run more than me. I don't know. She's like 7 or 8. I like running. It's It's meditative. It's nice. Yeah, no. So I've been running. I've been running since high school. I was in cross country back then, and then my first marathon was actually in Vietnam. I ran it in Da Nang, which is right in the middle of the country, and that was unbelievably fucking hot. The marathon started at 4 a.m. to try to beat the sun. I was slow as fuck, so naturally I still had some sun time. But no, yeah, I like marathons. I still run them. Next year we'll probably do one. I tried to do this year. I did a 30K trail race in Guadalajara. Whoa. And I tried to run a marathon in Milwaukee, but it got canceled because of thunder, so we only ran a half. And next year I'll probably do a marathon in Minnesota. Yeah,
that's amazing. I've been hearing it a lot lately of, marathons. Oh, I'm running. I'm doing this. I'm doing a 10K. I'm doing a 50K. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, what does it feel like leading up to the marathon? What are your thoughts during the marathon? And what sort of, emotions run through you when you reach that finish line?
Well, I think for everyone, it's a unique journey because you have to put your body through, and it depends on how seriously you're taking it. But you have to put your body through things that you just haven't ever had to go through before, especially if you're someone who's never been a runner. I will say that as long as you're not obese, and I mean like that in the medical sense, right? Mm-hmm. You can be overweight. As long as you're not obese, anyone can run a marathon. And now there's other things, maybe you have a disability of this, or maybe I'm not going to list all the reasons why you can't run a marathon, but so many people are capable of that. It's actually, let's say, I think people look at it as like a Mount Everest. And I think for some people who are not physically active, like historically, it's certainly a challenge. But with enough time, it's like, if let's say you're starting from zero, and I'm not a professional trainer, but if you're starting from zero, you give yourself 4 or 5 months of running 4 to 5 times a week, and you don't have to be crazy about it, right? Like when you start out, your first week, you can walk 5K for 5 days, and the next week you can walk those 5Ks, and then right, as long as you have enough time, those 4 or 5 month period, and as long as you're diligent and disciplined, right? And discipline is the key word, which most people are not. As long as you're disciplined, you'll get to the marathon and you'll have fun. Like there are people that I've introduced to marathons, and they have had a miserable time. And I'm like, hey, it's not that hard. Like you can do it. Like people who are, I would say, physically active, like that maybe they're not like, let's say, cardiovascular active, right, but like, yes. You look at them and like, oh, they look healthy, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, train for a month and a half, dude, and you'll run a marathon. You'll have a fun, like maybe it won't be like super, super fast or something like that, but you'll have a fun marathon. And if they don't, and this one guy, he did not train consistently. He trained like 2 times a week, like didn't get that many long runs in. Long runs being runs that are like over 20K. You should do multiple over 20K runs. To do and 20K for people that are on the English or the American measuring system would be 13 miles or more. You need to make sure you have some of those runs in. And he had a miserable time. He was like puking his guts out at mile 16 or kilometer 23, 24. And a marathon is 42 kilometers or 26 miles. And he had a miserable time. I had a wonderful day. I was running. There was like, just for context, right, on this course, this is in Iowa, in Des Moines, and people like will like party in front of their houses and their yards and then like offer runners things. And so like there's this one house every year, they have a line, like a clothesline, and they have pieces of bacon clothespinned to the line, and you can run and just grab a slice of bacon and eat it while you run. So like, grab a slice of bacon. Like there was another guy serving like little like tasting cups of Samuel Adams Oktoberfest beer, and you're just running your marathon. You're just like throwing back some beer on the run, and I did both of those, and I ran a great time. I think I finished with like a 3:45 that year, 3:48. Anyway,
wow, 3:40. Okay.
which is way off of Boston qualifying time. That's another story. But the whole reason I'm saying all this stuff is I think running a marathon and preparing yourself for it, the hardest part is just being disciplined and training however much time you need to be training, whether that's 2 months or 4 months, depending on your physical ability. And then when you're there, if you go, let's say, less hard than you train, it's going to be so easy. And yeah, the end of a marathon gets tough no matter what, because your body's been moving for 4 hours, right? But I think, and I'll say, right, like I've been wrong about this before. I've told people like, hey, man, you don't got to worry about it. But again, he didn't train like he should. Yeah. But I think people look at it like this super, super, super crazy thing. And it's like, just be disciplined for 4 months and then you can do it and not absolutely hate your life when you do it, But yeah, that would be my monologue on marathons.
Oh man, that sounds like so much fun, because I get like just imagining, just running and you're like kilometer 20 and you see a clothesline of just bacon and you're like, yep, taking a bacon or downing some beer. That's amazing. I didn't know that actually happened. Like, is that like
they can be fun. No, they can be fun like that. Like, I did not sign up for the Chicago Marathon, but I ran half of it with my girlfriend, just kind of like support. Mm-hmm. And same thing, I mean, a little bit different, but yeah, people line up the whole course and certain people will do fun things like that. The Chicago Marathon's particularly fun because you run through all of the unique neighborhoods, like the Mexican town, Chinatown. It's quite fun.
I never realized that was a thing. I thought it was just you're running, there's nothing else. You have to be obviously you do have to be mentally prepared in a certain degree, but there's no fun. It's just you run that 50K and that's it. That's what I thought marathons were.
No, it's way fun. And the bigger the marathon, the more fun it is. The bigger the marathon, it can be harder to get into, right? So like Chicago, you need to get a raffle. You need to raffle in. Okay. If you have a fast, if you're new, you wouldn't know this, but if you have a fast marathon time, you don't need to raffle. But yeah.
Wow.
And I would say as people get older, like I've noticed more people start to run. More people are like trying to do a marathon. A lot of people like to try and check that off their list. And so, yeah, I highly encourage you do it. It's a really fun challenge to put yourself through. One that I think is worth it to experience kind of how you perform both in the discipline sense before, as well as, pushing yourself through pain the day of, depending on how hard you push yourself.
Exactly. Okay. That's good. No, that's good advice, because I would definitely want to check out any marathons going around in my city, because it's something that I kind of want to try. And as you said, for whatever reason, as you grow up, you want to check that off of a bucket list for whatever reason. So it's on my list of things to do. We're almost in that 1 hour mark. So I just wanted to, before we close it all up, I do want to ask you your perspective on Azuki. So Azuki has been around for a year now, and we've been through our major ups and downs with it. And looking back at the journey, what were your personal highlights and lowlights of this adventure?
Gosh, it's you think about this whole thing and it's what an interesting chapter of my life, right? Like, yeah. I have, along with many others, felt so many things. And I think a lot of that is, Azuki is something different to every single person. And it's so interesting, right? Like, I think because of the way that they've chosen to market what it is, right? Like the decentralized anime universe or whatever they, have taglined it as, doesn't so much matter the tagline as much as how they've communicated and shown how they feel about it. And I'm talking about the core team here over the last year. But because of that, it really means something different to everyone. And I think that's unique to a lot of brands, even brands with super fans, right? Because the Green Bay Packers, as an example, means almost the same thing to all super fans. Now, they might have different variations, right? Why do they care about the Green Bay Packers being one of them? But what do they see the Green Bay Packers being for them, for the world? I think it's all pretty consistent. Whereas Azuki and the community, I think every single person has their own interpretation. I think there's probably plenty of overlap. But sorry, that's a huge preface, but I think that is super interesting. When I think about Azuki, I think about that. When I think about the highs, God, there's been so much time spent in the Discord, so much time spent learning about other people, making memes. It's like the highs are those moments of laughter, of giving other people laughter. It's so much tied to experiences that I've had. Unfortunately, I didn't get to New York. That would probably have made it on the list otherwise. I don't even know that I could say specific highs.
There's been so many. That's for sure.
There's been so many, and that's hard. It's hard. Now, lows is like, obviously, it's like, I would say lows have correlated with, I think from the start, especially people who cared a lot about what it was and what it was trying to be from the beginning. I think especially me, and I know other people, we might look at it a certain way where we think Azuki is this, and we think the core team is that. And when we learn that it is not that, or it is almost that, it can be very disappointing and very jarring, right? I think because of the nature of pseudonymity, that's a big word, and the nature of this is all a narrative-driven business, narrative-driven market, at least from the start, we can put ourselves in the clouds, right? We can like have such a grandiose view of what Azuki
you can
is.
dream up a lot of things.
Yeah, you can put it on this pedestal, and that's like when someone's like speculating on how Azuki's gonna partner with fucking Costco, right? And then when Azuki doesn't partner with Costco, it's like your life is ending, depending on how much energy you put into that, right? So definitely the lows have been correlated with any misaligned understandings of what the brand is and what the core team is. But at the end of the day, I am so impressed with the core team. I am so impressed with Azuki as a brand, and I am fortunate to get to be along for the ride. And I think one of my biggest shifts in opinion this year was at the beginning when Zagabond in the Twitter Spaces was referencing the Azuki community as consumers. I was really hurt by that. Right. And I was like, we're not fucking consumers, and I like, in a way it's embarrassing to admit, but I cried about that many times. Like, I was like, what? Really? I did. I was so fucking emotional about that. I was like, I really thought that I was building this, and it's like, it felt like that was all a lie a little bit. It felt like I was just a number. Mm-hmm. Right. And that was really jarring. And when I then realized that it was like that we are consumers, but we're a different type of consumers, where it's this like feedback loop that consumers can have with the brands and that the brands can have with the consumers. And it creates this beautiful experience that is unlike any other, that can add so much value to the consumers' lives, and the consumers can add value to not only the brand, but the brand owner, the founder's lives, right? And it's mm-hmm. I think it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship that between consumer and brand, where consumer can contribute a hell of a lot more than they used to be able to. But yeah, I would say there's more to say, but that's, if I were to sum up my experience with Azuki and what I think about Azuki, I would say I think those are the things I would say.
I think that was beautifully put. And honestly, thank you for being so honest. Yeah, like I felt those kinds of feelings as well. Hearing those things, especially when that manifesto first came out, that's when I really aligned with Azuki. And like you said, I dreamed up these grandiose things of Azuki, but at the end of the day, we're here now where they have executed so well on so many different levels. And yeah, we are just a different type of consumer, and when you accept that fact, it makes things a hell of a lot more fun.
Oh my god, yeah.
It really does. And so here we are, we're on the journey, and now here I am creating this podcast and being able to talk to so many of my friends I've made through this year, like you. And so thank you for coming and speaking about your childhood, your experiences in traveling and growing an e-commerce business, and what it's like being involved in a marathon. All I know is I'm excited for the bacon, and especially for being honest about your thoughts on Azuki. Is there anything you'd like to say to the community and all of our listeners?
No, just that I think anyone that's still listening to this, especially because I don't know how many people make it this far, is you're awesome. Everyone contributes a lot in their own ways, and I'm just thankful for anyone that is listening, because that means you're inherently interested in this space and interested in this community, and I think that's awesome. And I think that it's exciting more than anything else. And I think what that means is this can really become something beautiful that can continue to have such a large impact on the world and this space and in the Azuki community's lives. So I would say fucking keep doing you, keep being a beast to everyone.
Keep being a beast.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
That's it. I love it. Thank you, Ebe. Thank you.